Welcome to the American Dream Podcast Season 2, the show where I interview immigrants from all over the world to hear their perspectives of the American dream. I'm your host, Ekaterina. Привет. I'm in the studio with Shanil Patel. Namaste.
Namaste.
So you are Indian. Indian Americans are the second largest immigrant group in the United States. And you and I met in Bolivar, Missouri when you hired me to work at your hotel. And something that I've noticed right away when I met you was the similarity in the mentality. And then my mom told me that India was always friends with Russia and our nations always liked each other. So that kind of explained everything. You've been a close friend in our family, but I've never got to ask you, how did you move here? So I really want to get to know that. Where exactly were you born and what it was like to living and growing up in India?
Well, thank you so much. Yes, I still remember the day I hired you. And your mom is awesome. She is still one of the best employee and asset I had. She's always welcome back to work. Anyways, your question, where were I born in India? The state of Gujarat, which is west of India. And there's a town called Baroda, Baroda. That's where I was born. And that's where my mom and her family was. So you technically, the pregnant woman goes back to her parents' house to deliver the child. Typically, that's how it goes in our culture. So that's where my dad's in-laws were. So that's where I was born. Growing up there was awesome. You know, it's very tight-knit community there. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody knows everybody's business.
Kind of like
little too
Bolivar.
much. Yes, like Bolivar. That's why we'll get to there.
Yeah.
But it's just you growing up there was. I mean, if I compare to growing up in America versus growing up in India, it's totally different. School system is different. A lot is different. You have a lot of friends. A lot of friends. So like culture is not a huge difference over here. It's a lot of different, individual culture. But over there, it's all same. So like, friends and family are in abundance there. So It's just, you grow up, you wouldn't even know. It's just fun. Like you're always go to school, come home, you have friends. Then you have tuition classes that you have to go to. So that's huge in India. So your day school, and then in the afternoon and evening you have tuition classes that you go to revise everything you learn at school, actually, but you learn more in tuition classes than you learn at school.
What was the most difficult part about leaving?
The most difficult part about leaving India was, again, friends and family. For me personally, only friends, because majority of my family was already in America. But friends and was huge. Food too.
Food,
yes.
Of course.
Whew.
I've heard that Indian food is super good. I think
Super
your wife
good.
shared with me that American food has no taste to it. No flavor.
So
Yeah.
Indian food is flavorful, colorful, and definitely spicy.
So what was your journey to this new country and community like?
It was all blessing. Let me just tell you that way. My parents was already in United States, so it was very easy for me when I moved here because I already had a base created by them. They were waiting for me to finish my high school in India and wanted to come to America. When I moved to America, my eyes were open to the real world. Let me just put it that way, because when I was in India, I was a kid, I was a teenager, I was 18-year-old when I was moved to America. I just thought my mom, dad makes a lot of money because, that's the perception you have in India. When you go to foreign countries, you are converting those dollars in Indian rupees. $1 converts, $1 is equal to 70 rupees, 80 rupees. So, you can't really know how hard it is to earn that dollar until you move to America. So really huge eye-opening once I moved to America, realized how it what it takes to make ends meet.
What was something that surprised you the most?
The first thing comes in my mind when it surprise is I thought New York City is what the whole America is.
Yeah.
And then I saw a bunch of wide open land. So I'm like, what?
I can relate.
Yes. So where is Maseratis and Lamborghinis and high rises? I don't see any of that. All I see is flat land and houses and all I see is
banks.
Churches, yeah, banks, trucks. Trucks is like, they don't appeal me. However, I drive one now, but yeah, so that was the first surprise, like, oh, where's these high rises? And then second was, of course, hard work. You got to work here. You can't just sit home. And if you stay home, fortunate enough to stay home, you go crazy. And I didn't, and the social life was something which was surprising for me, that you basically, you don't even know your neighbors like that. Because you barely see them or stuff like that. So those was like very surprising, because in India, like I mentioned earlier, everybody's business. They know what time they're going to be home. If they're not home, you can still go to their house and just do whatever you want to do, type of deal. It was just how cool it was. And over here, you can't really, for God forbid, if I enter somebody's house without the permission, I may get shot.
So why did you move to the United States, and why did you choose Missouri?
Why did I move to the United States was, of course, a lot of immigrants moved for better opportunity. I moved originally to Philly when I moved to USA.
Okay.
Philadelphia was where I originally moved to, and went to college in Philly area. And I was there for 7 years. So like my American journey started in Philly, and why I moved to why I was in Philly is because where my parents were. And now if you ask them, they've been all over the country.
Wow.
To find right fit for them, and they ended up being in Philly, and I was in Philly, and then learned a lot of stuff in Philly. But what made me move to Missouri was hotel. The business, the money, the drive for money. And what made me move to America was same thing, better future, make more money. If I 10%, like if I do like, how I'm going to put it is like, the hard work I put in America will give me more results than twice of hard work I would put in India. And then nothing against India. It's just the psychological part, because that's where you're from. A lot of people, so a lot of the jobs are like you can't do because it's against your status, this and that and the other. So and so you don't have that like like you're open to a lot of options type of deal. You're very limited there. So now you go to a different country, you can restart everything, and that's why we were here. That's why I'm in Missouri.
So the top 4 challenges that every immigrant faces in the United States are language barriers, employment, housing, access to services. How did you overcome these?
It would be unfair for me to answer on behalf of somebody else, but like for me personally, it wasn't. It was hard personally as a child. But what sacrifice my mom, dad made, because they were here before, helped me personally out a lot. Now I can speak on their behalf because I have noticed that at first hand. Was extremely hard for them.
How old were you when you moved
18.
here? 18, okay.
Yeah. So when my parents were here before that, they... like I mentioned earlier, they hopped states and cities to find that right fit for them. They have worked gas stations, overnight gas stations, Dunkin' Donuts, retail, wholesale places, everywhere possible, and long hours, 2 jobs and stuff like that. And so when you're driven to make ends meet, it's surreal experience. So my parents lived in a 1-bedroom apartment. They worked 18 hours, so the housing was, and a lot of places when you have a labor like that, they kind of help you out with, because you don't really easily in America find labor like that either. Only, unfortunately, the people who come from different country are willing to do most of the stuff which we do here. So and you know, my parents were driven, and so they found this job, long hours, word of mouth, like you know, another Indian family knowing another Indian family knowing another Indian family. That's how they got hooked up to each other. So that's one thing that Indian community is good at. It's just like Italians and Russians, where they are tight knit in different country, because they know there are, you know, not a lot of them, especially the first generations. They stay in touch, they stay together,
for sure,
and
to help each other.
Yeah, help each other out. That's another Indian family and friends pointed dad and mom to directions to go to, and that's how they found job. And similar with me too. When I moved to America, I had my mom, dad, who told me what to do and this and that and the other. And when I turned 21, 22, 23, when I started to realize that I have to start taking responsibilities, because now I know what my dad and mom did. That's how I got pointed out to go to Midwest, where it's cheaper and you can probably do the same amount of things you do elsewhere.
So speaking of your career and moving to the Midwest, your career now is a business owner. You're a businessman.
Yeah.
So why did you choose this path in America?
This path was chosen by me since India. My parents used to own business in India, and I used to, every weekend when I'm home, not at school, I'd still get ready. As I saw my dad getting ready all a week long with a suitcase, acting like I want to go to the office and, you know, do my thing. So I always wanted to be a businessman. And when I moved to America, one thing my cousin told me, he goes like, you know, this is the land of opportunity. You see like the sky up there, that's your limit. And growing up in a household where, you know, you always was your own boss type of deal, it was the reason why I always wanted to be my boss, and didn't have to be able to not want to answer, you know, anybody else. So that's why I chose business, and that's why I'm in business. So
you talked about this a little bit, that you guys used to own a business in India. What was it like owning a business in India? Was it successful? Was it more successful than here in the States?
Different success, yes and no. So my parents did have a good in India when they had good in India, right? So once that went bad, it was just that's why they choose to move to America, because it's hard for you to go get back up in India, and it's easier to. I wouldn't say easier, but you could do it in America. You have an opportunities, so many opportunities in America that you can come back up. So they had a business in India. They took a really huge loss, and they just they were at the point where moving was the only best option they had on their plate, and that's why they moved to America and sold everything. So compared to business in India and America, it's completely night and day different. In America, you have to be there in your own business. You know, you can run on employees, but like, you know, to find that right help is hard in America. However, in India, there's 1.3 billion people. Everybody knows, like, you know, a lot of people. You grew up there, so the trust factor gets different and easier over there than America. So
interesting. Well, Sean, I love learning about Indian culture. And speaking of that, learning about new cultures is fun, but you also have to be a little careful. And I've heard that a simple comment such as, "I love your accent," might offend an Indian person. And besides that, what is something you should never say to an Indian?
Oh, yeah, "I love your accent" is always gets you.
Why? I think accents are fascinating.
Yeah.
And I think most American people would say the same too.
Yes, they do. But like Indian accent is not fascinating. It is, if you have Russian accent or you have Italian accent,
I
it
think
is
Russian
awesome.
accent is not fascinating.
Oh, because, you know,
because it sounds aggressive.
But I don't know. I mean,
I'm being honest.
I know. It's basically like, you know, you like the other stuff more. The grass is always greener at the other end type of deal.
We say that too.
Yep. So no. So that always. I mean, it depends who you deal with, right? If you say somebody, "Where are you from?" a lot of times it all depends on who you're asking, right? And to offend an Indian person is so hard.
Oh.
Yes, trust me, because they're so fun loving. They are very the hospitality part of the culture is so huge that if anybody, it's hard for them to get offended. Like, yeah, it's just, I don't know, what can you tell me to offend me, but I consider myself as like, more Americanized now than, Indian, but I'm still Indian. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how I can answer you because I don't get offended, but sometimes I do. Depends who's asking and how.
Because you're more American now.
Yeah. I guess so. That's the thing. You see, that's right there. Because I consider myself more Americanized. Now it's easier to offend me. But
Exactly.
if I was more Indian, I don't know if I would have gotten offended. I would have thought like, oh my God, she likes something about, or he likes something about me, or that person is fascinated something about me, so I'm doing something right. Yay, yay. Mm-hmm. If you go to my mom and you tell them like, where are you from, they would love to answer that because they want to talk about where they're from. Mm-hmm. Right? Oh yeah, I'm from India. Like, I'm gonna take a pride in it. When you ask another Americanized Indian, where are you from? Why you're being, because I'm brown, that's why you're asking me where I'm from, type of deal. So it's kind of a fine line.
Thank you so much, Shanil, for sharing your story with us. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back. You're listening to the American Dream Podcast. I'm your host, Ekaterina, in the studio with Shanil Patel. So Indian immigrants have the highest family stability of any group in America, with 94% of Indian immigrants with children stably married compared to 66% of white Americans. And there are two factors appear to play central roles in the rise of Indian Americans: education and family. In fact, the Indian American dream is putting family and education first. So do you agree or disagree with the Indian American dream?
Yes and no. And that's just me personally. So yes, family is so huge. And I am biggest preacher of family. Bad or good, it don't matter. Blood is blood at the end of the day. You got to stick for them.
You just had a child too.
Yes. And I'm going to teach her the same thing. However, yes. So when you grew up in a family where they're close-knit, and it makes a huge difference. Whenever you feel bad, you can go to your family and talk to them. Like, not always it's financial, but like emotional and mental too. To have a family like mom, dad, or cousins, or brother, or nephew or niece, like, hey man, I'm going through this issue, what do you think? Like, because they know you, because your parents made sure that they know each other. You all grew up like that, right? So you can trust. So if that is huge, and I back that up, education is always, of course, must, but it's not the only thing. I mean, I would consider like sports, putting sports in it too, because that's where a lot of the Indian parents we speak to in my family and my friends and my cousins, they're all like, are more like, oh my God, you got to make sure that you go to private school, or make sure that I work as hard as possible to put my kids through the private school, the best education, the best school they go to, and they hopefully become an engineer or a doctor or a pharmacist, and they take pride in it, and which is awesome. I mean, but I would say like put the sports in it too.
Okay.
Sports makes a lot of money too.
Make it a trio.
Yeah.
Family, education, and sports.
Yes. Yep. They make a lot of money.
So this is Indian American dream. So India is a nation. Mm-hmm. But what is your American dream personally? What does it mean for you? And how do you feel about this concept in general, American dream?
American dream could be different for a lot of other people, right? For person sitting, so for me, American dream is like, to have real estates, to have a beautiful family, to have a stable or nice job or income, and big house, yachts,
Yachts.
Private jets. No, but that's like, that's what American dream is, right? Perfect family. You gotta go like, I have a 9-to-5 job, no weekends, this and that. And my personal dream is different. I want to be very, very successful, but I want to be able to make difference in a lot of people's life.
Oh.
Especially like, people working with me, for me. Like the immediate people, like friends and family, of course, but like, people who are working for me and with me, or around me. That has been a driving force for me.
So that's your American dream.
Yeah, be successful and be able to take care of the people around you and make a difference.
So do you think you reached your American dream? And if not, is there a limit?
Personally, no. But and with God's grace, what position I am in right now could be plenty. But what I want in my life is more than what it is, and like the better position I am in is more I can do for people.
Okay.
So no, sky's the limit, and I just want to grow as much as I can, as fairly quicker as I can, not shortcut, but just sooner. I don't want to be at my goal at the age of 65. I want to be there at 45.
Okay. So do you think you reached your Indian American dream? So like if you were to go back to India, and how would people look at you?
Oh, yeah.
They would probably say that, oh my God, you're living the American dream.
Yes. For them, yes. I feel like, yes. Well, again, it's not because, I don't know if but like, yeah, I have a beautiful family. I do personally have an education. I have a stable business, a beautiful daughter, beautiful wife, house, and I can take vacations when I want to, and I've worked hard for it. So for me to go back to my country right now, yes, they're probably gonna think like, oh my God, you're perfect. This is what I want to be at. But I am not done yet.
So if someone you knew from India were planning to coming to this country for their American dream, what would you tell them to expect? What advice would you give them about whether or not they should come?
So first of all, I would tell them like, if you're doing good in India, don't come here. But if you want to come to America, then be ready to forget India. You can't think like Indian and live in America, because it's hard. It gets hard for you. You get too hard on yourself. So like, you should be ready to work your butt off. You just have to be very dedicated and motivated. And it goes without saying, because if a person makes a move like that big to come to a different country to build a life, it has to be dedicated and motivated. You cannot just wake up and just decide to go there because heck of it. But like, I would tell them to have a very, very open mind. Don't be closed-minded.
So finally, I have found an Indian proverb that says, there is no lotus without a steam. What does that mean in your culture?
Oh, wow. Is
that an Indian proverb? I don't know. Maybe Google lied to me.
I don't know. I mean, so sometimes, Google will put it in English and translation don't make sense.
Does that sound
so familiar? Lotus is our national flower.
Oh.
Or yes, it is our national flower. And it is grown in mud. So the reason why they say is like, you could... Basically, it says you could make even lotus. It makes it to like, national flower, even though they are grown in mud. So
wow, just like American dream.
Yes.
America, the country of opportunities, and anybody can become anything they want in this country.
Yes.
Thank you so much for visiting me today, Shanil. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram at podcasttad.